Hello everyone, I'm on Reddit because I need help dealing with a situation regarding my daughter who's apparently screwed me over. So I'm 46 years old and recently went through a divorce with my wife of 23 years. My wife, Lydia, 44, female, was my girlfriend from college who I went on to marry after we graduated. We have a daughter together as well, Erica, who recently turned 21. I was the one who initiated the divorce after I found out that Lydia had been cheating on me with her boss, Alan. I came across some texts on her phone by accident, and when I confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She confessed that it had been going on for quite some time, and she'd been planning on letting me know because she'd fallen for her boss and couldn't be with me anymore. She moved out after she confessed, and I filed for divorce the next day. Almost 8 months have passed since that day, and a couple of weeks ago the divorce finally came through. I've managed to keep myself as far as I can from my ex-wife after I found out about her affair, and have tried my very best to put my own mental health first during the divorce, which took a huge toll on me. I thought that now that that was all done with, I can finally relax and let loose, but I was wrong, thanks to my daughter. So back when I first filed for divorce, I told Erica all about the reason behind it when she asked me why her mother wasn't living with me anymore. She was old enough to understand these things, so I was completely transparent with her. Then she went ahead to talk to Lydia about this and instantly went no contact with me after she found out exactly how rich Alan was. She told me that she loved her mother more. Alan was financially better off and she'd never have to worry about money if she picked their side. So she didn't want anything more to do with me now. It was a huge shock to me and I was heartbroken when she told me this. But I still had my pride intact, so I didn't respond to her and just hung up without saying anything. I didn't expect to hear from her after that, but exactly a month later, she turned up at my doorstep and begged me to take her in. She'd graduated just a couple of weeks before that, but she hadn't even invited me to the ceremony, and neither had she spoken to me for a month, so I was very miffed with her and wasn't inclined to take her in at all. But she just kept apologizing and requesting me to let her stay with me, so she wore me down after a while. And I let her in with all her stuff so she could live with me. After moving in with me, she told me that she'd initially tried to get on her mom's and her boss's good side by cutting ties with me so she could try and convince Alan to invest in the bakery business she wanted to start. My daughter had always taken a keen interest in baking right from childhood, and she'd been good at it, so she'd gone to business school to learn how to run a business herself. Her end goal had always been to end up as a baker with a business, and she'd wanted Alan to fund that because otherwise she'd have to work and earn the money to invest in her business herself. Lydia and I had always told her that it would be better for her to work under someone first and gain some hands-on experience working as a professional baker before she started her own business. But she wanted to jump the gun and start her own thing right away. She knew there'd be a lot of arguments if she brought the business up with her without first working with someone professional, and we wouldn't just readily hand over the funds, so she'd planned to convince Alan instead, because he had a lot of money and wouldn't be too worried about it. She did approach Alan a couple of weeks back to ask him to invest. Without her mother's knowledge, he told her that he'd think about it, but instead he went and told Lydia about what Erica had asked. My wife and daughter got into a massive argument over this, and as much as I hate to say it, Lydia's stance on this was justified. Erica had gone behind her mother's back to ask her new boyfriend for investment funds, knowing that Lydia wouldn't be okay with it. That was really sneaky and disrespectful to Lydia, especially when she just started dating this man openly. So her anger made sense. They tried to work things out but couldn't, and so Erica had cut her mother off and come to me for help instead. I told her the same thing again, that for me it was a requirement that she first work under a professional and then start her own business. She had a business degree and she had a knack for baking, but that didn't necessarily mean that she'd be excellent at it in a professional capacity without any experience. She needed to practice, so I told her very frankly that I wouldn't be giving her any money unless she agreed to my terms. Unhappily, she did agree to it, and I even had a lawyer draw up an agreement to make sure that she stuck to it. She wasn't very pleasant during that process, but she did agree to it because she knew that this was the only way I'd fund her business in the long run. Her efforts to get Alan to do it had turned out to be a bust, so I was her last resort, unless she went out and asked other investors for funds, which would be a lot harder. After she signed the agreement, I did allocate some funds for her while she tried to look for jobs. She'd ask me for money almost every day for her commute and other bills that she needed to pay, like her Netflix and other stuff, so I handed over my spare debit card to her. I had some savings set aside in that account, around $25,000, which I'd actually been saving for the future because I wanted to retire early. I had severe carpal tunnel syndrome, so it's difficult for me to continue working this desk job in the coming years, and I'd keep putting some money aside every month so I could retire early. Now that Erica seemed to need money, I handed the card to her and asked her to use it responsibly and return it to me until she was able to pay off all her own bills after she found a job. I'll admit I forgot about that a couple of weeks later because I was too caught up at work. Erica kept updating me on her life every other week at dinner and would tell me about her new job, working at a professional bakery, how much she was earning, and how life was for her. I believed her, because I didn't think that she had any reason to lie about any of that. She'd go out every day and come back late in the evening for months, so I was sure that she was telling me the truth. Last week I learned that actually none of that was true, and she'd been lying to me all along. I randomly called that I'd given my daughter my card and decided to check the money I had in that account. I knew that Erica's salary was going into her own account, and now she could afford to pay her own bills and stuff. I expected there to be at least half of the amount that there was in there originally. To my surprise, there was just $3,000 left in there, and the rest was just gone. I was in shock and decided to check out the transaction history, which is something I should have done a long time ago. And then I would have realized that Erica had disregarded everything I'd asked of her and started her own business anyway. She'd rented a store in the most happening part of the city, which meant higher rent, and had used my money to fund her business, which was a clear breach of the agreement that she'd signed. She'd been running the store for the past couple of months and had also been using my card for all other expenses too. She didn't have to pay rent because she lived with me, but she did go out with her friends, party, and paid for it all with my card for the last few months. I was horrified to find all of this out in one sitting just because I'd randomly decided to check what she'd been up to with my card, and I immediately called her up and told her that she needed to get back home right away. She came back home within an hour, and when I demanded an explanation, she told me that she just couldn't wait to have her own business. She knew she'd promised me something, but she didn't want to wait around and work under others when she knew she was capable of making the business work for herself. I asked her where exactly she'd blown all my money, and while she was speaking quite confidently before that, as soon as I asked her, she started getting flustered. Apparently her business hadn't been doing so well. No surprise there. And she'd been struggling to pay rent for her store, buy her ingredients and other things that she needed, pay her bills for the store and stuff. So she'd been using her own money plus my money, and that's where she'd spent it all. I was furious and told her that she needed to shut her business down within this week and get me my money back, but she argued with me and told me that she wasn't going to do it because she'd worked hard for it and she just needed some time to get used to the pressure of running a small business all on her own. She said that I needed to support her, but I was not interested in getting a lesson on parenting from her at the time, so I continued to fight with her. And after some time, she just burst into tears and told me that she'd be better off with her mother, because at least she was more forgiving and had asked her to come back several times, even after the incident with Alan. She threatened to leave, and I asked her to be my guest. So she packed her stuff up and left that day, just a week after my divorce was finalized. I was already very stressed out and had spent a lot of money on my lawyer, and then, to add to this, Erica had spent a significant amount of the funds I'd been keeping aside for my own future so I could retire early. I was really annoyed and decided to sue her because she'd breached the agreement that we'd had, and she'd only get to use the funds if she worked under a professional first. So I decided to go up against her and sue Erica to get my money back a few days after she left, and 2 days back after she was served, I received a very angry phone call from Lydia. I hadn't expected us to be back in touch so soon after the divorce, but yet here we are. She was angry that I was suing Erica and brought up the same bullcrap that most guilty people say, that I should be ashamed of myself because I'm going against my own daughter. I told her to stay out of this and hung up, but she's been texting me consistently to remind me that I'm being a terrible dad right now. I know that what I'm doing is acceptable legally, but I think Lydia's texts have been getting to me because now I actually do think I might be taking things too far. I'm usually not a very confrontational person, but I really have been looking forward to retiring early. And now I'll have to continue working for God knows how many more years, all because Erica screwed up. I don't know if I'm the bad guy here or if it's just Erica and Lydia trying to make me feel like one. So I take back the lawsuit. AITA for suing my own daughter after she used my retirement funds to start her bakery when I'd asked her not to? Update 1. Hey everyone, so thanks for the overwhelming response and all the support that you guys have shown to me. It means a lot to me, so thanks for that. Coming to what's going on with me and my family, things have been bad. I've blocked Lydia, but I haven't blocked Erica. So now she's the one who's sending me texts every day to guilt trip me and make me feel bad for just standing up for myself. I'm just kicking myself for not checking my balance earlier. Maybe I would have discovered Erica's lies a long time back, but I was so caught up with my job that I didn't even stop to think about the possibility of her being dishonest with me. I feel like I failed as a father because Erica has turned out to be a liar and a greedy brat. I don't know, it just sucks the way she's been trying to gaslight me and emotionally manipulate me. It's not helping my mental state either. I was just getting over the divorce, but now I have to deal with this too. It's exhausting, and I've told her that she can either respond to me legally or she can leave me alone altogether, but she's not supposed to do this to me. It's just not right. It hasn't helped though, and she just keeps finding ways to make me feel like crap about wanting to look out for my own interests. Just yesterday, she sent me a message saying that she'd ended the lease on the store she'd rented and would soon move out. She asked me if I was happy about it, which is just so manipulative because she's making me feel like this is my fault somehow, and I know it isn't. Her mother is another troublesome element who keeps making cryptic posts about me, and it always finds its way to me, either through friends who want to make fun of her or through nosy relatives who want to gossip about this. Either way, it's just annoying beyond a certain point. Update 2. So almost a week has passed and Erica has responded to the lawsuit. I demanded that she pay back the entire amount that she'd taken, but her lawyer wants to negotiate and bring the amount down to $10,000. I didn't know why she thought that it was a fair deal, because clearly even the $10,000 that she's willing to pay now is all thanks to Alan. So why not just go ahead and pay off the entire amount? Doesn't make sense to me, but it's fine. We'll just duke it out in the negotiations. I don't want to take this to court, but if we're not able to come to a common conclusion, then that's what's going to happen anyway. So I'll try my best along with my lawyer to reach a common ground with her, but it seems unlikely that she'll be willing to budge, given her attitude towards me in the past couple of days. She's taken a leaf out of her mother's book and has blocked me, so she can now post on social media about what a terrible dad I am. I've told all my friends and family that I don't want to hear or see what they post about me because it's just irrelevant. But they still keep sending me stuff that Erica posts about me. Mostly pictures with my face scribbled out and just her mother with captions like, "My only family," emphasis on only. Or quotes that talk about absent fathers and stuff, which is all a load of complete baloney. But she wants the sympathy and attention right now, so what better way than making me look like the bad guy? I don't think it's fair to paint me in this light, but I realize that most of the things that Lydia and Erica do aren't very fair anyway. So I'd better just get used to it by now. My attorney has told me that we don't need to worry about the negotiations and the settlement because he thinks he'll be able to convince Erica, But that's not even my biggest concern. I'm just worried that I might fall emotionally weak and end up giving in to her terms and conditions. During the divorce, it was still easier because Lydia had cheated on me and had screwed me over badly, so I could bring myself to hate her without batting an eye. But here, it was different. This was my little girl that we're talking about here, and it wouldn't be as easy as it had been with Lydia. Erica was my daughter, and I don't think any father in my position would have found it easy to come after their own kin to protect their own interests. I feel selfish, but even though she's my daughter, Erica has been greedy and untrustworthy so deep down. I know this is the right thing to do. I have to do this, and I must do this. All I want is the mental strength to put myself through this once more, just one last time. Update 3. Hey guys, so there are just 2 days to go before I meet Erica and her lawyer for the commencement of the negotiation process. And today, literally out of nowhere, Lydia and Alan paid me a visit. It's almost midnight right now, and they visited me around 5:15, which is the time I get home from work usually. Lydia and Alan were actually waiting for me when I came back home, and I was quite surprised to see them, but didn't let it show on my face and pretended to be composed. I didn't want to invite them in, but Alan said that they had really something private to discuss with me, and so I had to bring them in. It wasn't the most normal sight for me to have my ex-wife and her new guy sitting in my living room, but that's how it was. I waited for them to get to the point, but Alan kept trying to make small talk with me. He actually seemed like a decent guy, barring all the having an affair with someone's wife. Eventually, I got tired of talking about irrelevant things and told them to just get to the point. So they did, and told me that it was Alan who was taking the fall for Erica's lapse in judgment. And so he was paying me the money, which is something I already knew, but what I didn't know was that Alan had kids of his own too, who he had to look out for. His son was about to start college, and his older daughter was going to get married the next year, so he had other financial concerns too, and couldn't just pay off $25,000 like that. He wanted to appeal to me personally so that I'd just settle for $10,000 right now, and they could pay the rest of the amount over time instead of giving it all to me up front. I mulled it over for a while, and it seemed fair enough to me, so I agreed to it. It was just a verbal agreement, nothing too serious, so I was all right with the proposition. And I also just wanted them to go away so I could unwind after work. Lydia seemed satisfied, so she decided to leave, but Alan asked if he could speak to me in person, which took both me and Lydia by surprise. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity, and after Lydia had left, the guy sat back down and apologized to me for whatever had happened. He seemed sincere while he was sharing his side of things, and revealed that while he and Lydia were together, she'd not been entirely truthful with him and had convinced him that she was trapped in an unhappy marriage, which is why he'd felt a little less guilty about the affair. She'd been the one to initiate things, and he'd been skeptical in the beginning, but he fell for her, and he fell hard, which makes sense because despite everything, Lydia is beautiful, smart, and funny, so it's not surprising that he fell for her. So had I a really long time ago. He didn't expect me to be okay with everything all of a sudden, but he said he just needed to get it all off his chest and at least know that he tried to apologize. I told him it was fine because Lydia was the one who owed me the loyalty, not him. He left after his apology, and I've been thinking about it all since then. It's just weird how Alan, a practical stranger, had more compassion for me than my own wife and daughter. It's just sad that things turned out this way, but I'll get over it. Update 3. I met my daughter for the negotiation today. It went all right, and we're going to stick to the arrangement that I worked out with Alan. $10,000 right now, and then the rest in installments over the next couple of months. Seeing her was definitely harder for me than it was for her because she pretended like I was a stranger. She was cold, but I don't blame her. After all, I was the one who was saying that to her, even though it was her fault. After we were done with the meeting, I saw that Lydia had come to pick her up afterwards as well, and the two of them shot me some really nasty looks before driving away. I wanted to stop them and give them a piece of my mind, but it just wasn't worth it. Later, when I came back home, I expected things to be over once and for all, but unfortunately, Erica still was holding my lawsuit against me, even though she literally created this situation herself. She unblocked me and texted me saying that she was very relieved that things were finally done and that she'd never have to see me again because apparently I'd been a terrible dad and a failure as a parent. And a husband. I'm sure Lydia loved that Erica had added that bit, even though I'd done my best to be a good husband and a good father. She added that I'd ruined her business dreams once, but now that Alan was a part of her life, she wouldn't have to worry about her future anymore because now a better and richer man was her dad. Alan and Lydia aren't married yet, so I don't know what she's on about also. She's an adult, so it's not like there's any surety of him always taking the fall for her like he did in this case. Even that was definitely just because he wanted to impress Lydia, not because he thought of Erica as his own daughter or whatever. It was a hate-fueled rant, but I tried not to let myself get too affected by it and just blocked her. Now, I'm just going to work and travel and live the life I want. That's all I want for myself. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.